pools of nuclear waste bubble at your feet. The radioactive winds howl around you. Clouds of dust are thrown into the air. You think you hear some sort of roar in the distance. Dilapidated buildings crumble around you. Their stone walls scorched and blackened. Your hands shake, terrified that someone or something might be around the next corner, hoping you'll get robbed, or worse. Even in the post-apocalypse, people still kill each other because war never changes. Welcome to the wasteland. Right now, I'm going to be telling you guys about two of the several Fallout games. There's an entire series of them. Fallout 1, 2, 3, New Vegas, and a couple spin-offs. But I'm going to mainly be focusing on Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. Those were the two that came out in 2008 and 2011 for the Xbox, PS3, and the PC. The first Fallout games came out on the PC and were very unlike the newer games in the way that they are played. The story, or background, for the Fallout universe, if you would call it that, is that on the night of October 23rd, 2077, my birthday, the end of a war between the United States and China came about with China launching hundreds of nuclear missiles at the United States, essentially wiping it out. However, a company called Vault-Tec during this war created vaults, vast underground bunkers capable of housing hundreds of people, keeping them safe from what they believed was going to be the end of the world soon, because of how the war was going, because both sides were building up their nuclear arsenal. Well, on that night, the bombs did fall, but people survived, hundreds of them, in these vaults. And throughout the 2100s and 2200s, hundreds of years after the end of the war, people started emerging from the vaults when the nuclear fires cooled down, revealing the wasteland, which is what people referred to the United States and other parts of the world after the war. Because of the numerous communities of people that survived the nuclear apocalypse, society, in a sense, began to creep back into the remains of the United States by the vault dwellers, is what the people in the vaults were classified as, leaving their subterranean sanctuaries to create new towns and communities in the wasteland. The most prominent factions to rise in this post-apocalypse were the Brotherhood of Steel, which was the remains of the United States Army that was in one specific vault, and their goal was to, number one, protect the people of the wasteland, to keep them from the radioactive and mutated horrors that walked throughout it. They hoard technology from the previous time. They wear power armor and wield giant laser weapons, which were just coming out when the war happened. The Enclave is the remains of the United States government, which they say that they're here to make everything better, join us, we're going to bring the U.S. back. In reality, they're actually an evil, tyrannical faction that want to rule everybody with an iron fist. There are many instances in the games where you find them capturing people, killing them, experimenting on them. It's not a nice faction. Then, in the remains of what was the Mojave Desert in Las Vegas, which is where Fallout New Vegas takes place, there are two factions called the New California Republic and Caesar's Legion. The New California Republic came from California over into Nevada, where they just want to take in the areas and make them into part of the NCR. Caesar's Legion came from Arizona, and they want to take over everything just to be some sort of empire. There are many smaller factions smattered throughout each wasteland. Specifically in Fallout 3, which takes place in Washington, D.C., called the Capital Wasteland, there are many factions like Talon Company, a band of mercenaries. There's a bunch of raider gangs that just rob people as they walk throughout. In the Mojave Wasteland, the area around New Vegas, as it's called, there's many gunslinger gangs that walk around, but there aren't as many as in the Capital Wasteland because New Vegas is actually quite protected from any attacks, because the NCR has kind of taken sort of control of it. It's kind of loose, because you actually fight for control over New Vegas throughout the entirety of Fallout New Vegas, which leads me to say how there are stories in each game, even though the core of the game is about doing whatever you want in this post-apocalypse. For example, in New Vegas, you play as a courier, someone who delivers packages from one point to another in the wasteland. It's called the Mojave Express, and your character, which you can actually create to look like whatever you want. So not only can you play the game however you want, do whatever you want, you can make your character look like whatever you want. So it's just that you're making the game in a sense. In the Capital Wasteland and the Mojave Wasteland, there are many things you have to do in order to survive. Because if you just walk out there saying, yeah, wasteland, I can just shoot everything. No, you're going to die. You need to find weapons. There are a plethora of weapons you can use to defend yourself throughout the wasteland. Because everything essentially wants to kill you. Everything. I mean, sure, there are people that won't kill you outright, but most things you encounter throughout the remains of the U.S. will outright try to kill you. You need to find food. That's actually another thing in Fallout, where you actually have to keep yourself sustained with food and sleep and water, or else you're going to die from starvation. Then you also need to actually wear protective clothing, either armor or trench coats if you want to be all daring, because in order for things to attack you, you need to have protection. You actually have to go out of your way to make sure that you can survive in this wasteland. The actual gameplay of the Fallout games differs for the consoles on which they are. On the Xbox, they are much like this, where you're either in first person or you can be in third person, over the shoulder. And this broadens the audience of people who want to play it, because some people like third-person games, other people like first-person games. And not only does it differ from that, you can also either use guns or melee weapons, which is, beating things to death with a stick if you really want to. And not only that, but that also diverse. You can use guns that use bullets, you can use guns that shoot lasers, that shoot plasma, and then with melee weapons you can use swords, clubs, hammers. Leave it at this. The gameplay is so diverse. You can simply play the game however you want, do whatever you want, and make your character look like whatever you want. That is one of the reasons I love the Fallout series so much, because it gives you so much freedom and room for creativity and imagination for how you want to play the game. Even though there is a main storyline. You can choose to follow the main storyline and other quests you find, or you can kill everything and not just do that. And on top of that, there are good and evil choices as measured by karma in the game. If you help out someone, if you help them survive an attack by raiders, you get good karma, because you're helping them out. Or you can just murder them all and steal their stuff and you get bad karma. This beautifully corresponds with all these different freedoms to create this game series that is so unlike anything else, which just makes it amazing. So, now that you know about how the Great War, which was the war that was the name classified as the nuclear war that ended the world as we know it, the types of horrors that emerged from the radiation-scorched wastes and how to survive from them, as well as going about living and killing in the post-apocalypse, do you think you have what it takes to survive in the wasteland? Even if you don't, life in the wastes will continue on as people there die every day because they don't know how to survive. Sort of like a Darwinism kind of thing. And the war for survival will carry on because war never changes.